Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 221.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers who are looking to shoot lower scores. Dedicated to professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. Changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. I've been living in the world of hitting 180-yard maximum drives and maybe almost as difficultly 150 to 160-yard five woods. And it's not much fun. But maybe knowing more importantly that my fitness and strength is sneaking away from my 75-year-old body. So about 2 weeks ago, I started doing a 12-week online off-season golf and fitness program with Dr. Paul Guidry, who has worked with many older golfers like myself to, as he says, hit bombs and play without pain forever. I'm sure many of you are going to enjoy hearing from him today about helping golfers of all ages improve their fitness and improve their lives.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 221 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. Today, I welcome us all to learn from Dr. Paul Guidry with Guidry Golf and Sports. He's a doctor of physical therapy and a Titleist Performance Institute, TPI, certified fitness professional who's helped hundreds of golfers, as he says in the title of his books, hit bombs and play without pain forever. And 75-year-old guys like me sometimes get tired of hitting 170-yard drives and just keep moving up in tees. And so I've started one of his fitness programs. Not the most elaborate one, probably, as you'll explain later, but a start for about 12 weeks, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing your some of your insights to share with people today. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah. Well, share a little bit about your story, and you did a little bit before I started this recording, which is interesting. Why you chose to get a doctor of physical therapy and how you came to love the game of golf.
So, I've kind of always wanted to go in physical therapy. I played sports in high school and had some injuries and went through physical therapy with that. And that kind of piqued my interest. And more or less since then, I knew I wanted to kind of be in that field and definitely be working with athletes. I really didn't play much golf growing up, to be honest. Played a lot of basketball, baseball. Those are kind of the two main sports. I kind of played around with golf. One of my best friends ended up playing in college. So I'd go play with him, but never real serious. And then I went to physical therapy school at the University of St. Augustine in St. Augustine, Florida. In Florida, there's a golf course on every corner. So golf kind of started to become my escape from school. I was getting out of other sports and still wanted to kind of compete with myself, compete with other people. And I just kind of fell in love with the game there. So I knew coming out of school, to some degree, I always wanted to make it part of my professional life. And as we were talking about earlier, I ended up getting a lesson from James Lights very early on out of school. We were in the same area. I had a physical therapy business. And he kind of mentioned TPI and got me, set up with them. And we started working together. I started working out of the club he was out, and eventually kind of built that into the business I have today. So, I owe a lot of him of really getting me in the golf business, and definitely, a lot of the knowledge I've gained on the golf swing itself, comes from him. So, that's kind of been my journey. I love the game of golf. I'm an avid golfer. I try to play as much as I can with two kids and a business and all that. But, like every golfer, I want to hit it further. I want to get better. I'm trying to improve my game, improve my distance myself. And I love helping other golfers do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, so you said you kind of started with him, really getting into this maybe 15 or so years ago. And, on your website, you say you've helped a lot of golfers over the years, but how have your concepts for how to help golfers improve their physical and golf performance changed over those years? And what things do you simply think are incorrect about what a lot of people do about, physical and golf improvement training?
So I would say, like, for me, the more I've kind of gone on in this business, the simpler my coaching, my training, my programs have gotten. Realistically, I think there's a lot of just kind of fluff out there. You see all these videos, fix this swing fault with these exercises and do this, do that are more golfish type movements that really don't move the needle much when it comes to improving fitness, improving health, improving performance on the course, hitting it further, playing without pain. Those are kind of the 1% movements, that most golfers aren't going to benefit much from. For me, it's really a simplified program of getting strong in the basic movement patterns, doing some jumping, doing some medicine ball work, moving fast, spending some time swinging as fast as you can, whether with a driver and ball or, some kind of speed training system, super speed stack system, those type of things. Those are and even some mobility, daily mobility. Those are kind of the buckets that move the needle the most. In my experience, that's kind of what the evidence shows. If you look at the research, that's what the best practices show for, the best coaches in the business from the fitness side. And the reality is look, I've worked with some somewhat high level golfers in the professional ranks, the collegiate ranks, even some high level amateurs. But for the most part, most golfers, time is kind of a limited thing for them. Most of the golfers I work with, are highly successful in whatever business, or field they're in. They've got kids, they've got families. They want to be out on the course practicing and playing. So my job is to try to figure out how do we get the most bang for their buck in the least amount of time. And, how we do that is just simply working on the basics and getting very good at those.
It's been exciting to start thinking about this, but this is one of the best times in the world for golfers because there's more information out there about the kind of things you do, right? And until that kind of happened, 50, 60-year-old golfers, they just live with what they got, and there's a lot of chances if they want to dive deep into it to gain a lot of things back.
Yeah. Obviously with internet, social media, you kind of have access to unlimited information out there. And sometimes, that could be a bad thing, trying to figure out, well, which information is good or bad or what's best for you. But as a whole, I think it's a good thing. I think, golfers are exposed to more, stuff that's going to benefit them on the course and even off the course as they age, especially. The beauty of kind of having apps and things like that allows me to reach more golfers outside of my local area, via kind of my online training programs like the one you're in, so it gives myself more access to golfers and ability to help them, as well as golfers more access to not only information, but good coaches all over the world, even with, swing coaches and online lessons and things like that. You can work with a high level instructor that might be, hundreds of miles away for you or even in a different country and still have access to their knowledge and their teaching.
Now, I found it fascinating from your book that the median age of golfers is 54 years old. And that number just didn't resonate with me until I read it. And over half the golfers you work with are over the age of 50. I mean, there's some obvious things about how we change as we get older, but, talk a little bit about some of that and how that can be reversed.
Yeah. So really, the biggest things we lose, definitely strength and power. If you just look at the research and the data out there with aging in general, not just the golfing population, but all of us, strength and power is kind of the areas we have the steepest loss in. And it typically starts in our 30s and 40s, especially if we're not doing anything to train those things. Mobility is definitely in there, but it's not as high a priority, or it's not as big of a loss as those things. And it's a lot easier to get back. But you start looking in your 40s, we're going to lose those things whether we like it or not. I'm 42, so I'm kind of starting to get into that age group. So realistically, I try to promote people starting to work on those things well before they get into that time frame. But once you're there, it doesn't mean you can't reverse those changes. And it's not only important when it comes to a kind of minimizing the loss of distance or even regaining lost distance that you've lost with age, but I always tell my golfers, look, if you want to enjoy this game and be able to go play 18 holes, and if you want to be able to just do simple things, get up and down off the ground, go up and down stairs, those things that functionally we need to do to be independent, it's going to benefit you in all areas of life of spending some time, strength training, power training, because those are the biggest metrics that carry over into our ability to do anything functionally, anything performance wise, whether it's tennis, golf, pickleball, whatever it is that are kind of sports that we tend to, gravitate towards more up in age. Not only our ability to just do them at the level we want, but even improve our ability to perform in those areas.
Now, I have to say, one of the biggest, as much as I, don't want to hit 170-yard drives, I watch a lot of people that are somewhere in my age or maybe a little older, and you almost see one of the first things that happens when they really go downhill is they fall. Okay. And they break a hip or something like that. And that's almost as much a motivation for me as just, to get more enjoyment out of playing and, hit it over 200 yards, things like that. But being able to ward off some of that stuff that I don't think you'll do if you don't take care of yourself is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my background as a physical therapist, I've worked with a lot of just general public, after those injuries, and if you look at the data, I forget what the numbers are, but like your likelihood of coming back after like a broken hip back to normal function is maybe 40, 50% somewhere. I don't remember the exact number, but it's kind of an eye-opening number. And there's even a high increased death rate after something like that, just hospitalization, and you kind of start a sharp decline. So, those things can happen to anyone, but the stronger you are, the more powerful you are, and even, working on some dynamic balance and things like that, all of those things will help significantly minimize your ability or minimize the chance of you having those kind of catastrophic injuries like a fall and a broken bone. The more muscle mass you have on you, the more kind of padding you have when those things do happen, the more your body can sustain different stresses. But also, look, let's say something does happen. The better shape you're in going into something like that, even if it's an elective surgery like a hip replacement, knee replacement, which we see a lot of, the stronger you are going into those things, the better shape you are going into those things, the easier the recovery is and the better chance you're going to be getting back to the level you want to get to after those things. So, it is, I talk a lot about, golfers come to me mostly because they want to gain distance or they want to prevent the loss of distance. But the beauty of the things that benefit golfers in doing that are going to benefit them in every other area of their life when it comes to health and function and safety and fall risk reduction, which are all very important things. Look, if you break a hip, how fast you can swing a golf club is pretty irrelevant at that moment. You're just trying to get back to leading a normal life. So, those things are highly important just in our ability to live a high quality life as we age.
Yeah. Now, I put two questions to you in the notes I sent, but it's really sort of combined a little bit. In your book, you talk about what I think are some really high standards, which is kind of cool because it's nice to try to achieve things, right? That humans at any age ought to be able to body press, to bench press 1 times their body weight at 1.5 and 2 times body weight deadlift, 1 and 1.5 times body weight squats, which at my starting point, that's sure not there, but it's fun to sort of look toward that. My grandson's a rower, okay?
Uh-huh.
And he benches 275, 300. He's maybe going to go to a D1 school. Got a lot of, he's excited about it, enjoys it. But I teased him. I said, hey, I benched 115 pounds the other day. I'm coming for you. And he laughed. But talk about how your programs are designed to help golfers, move toward those goals. Because if you're going to reach those kind of goals, you're not going to do it overnight. It's going to take time.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, a lot of that's based on your history, your age. There's a lot of factors that kind of go into hitting those numbers, and really it's more about the pursuit of getting as close to those numbers as possible. It's going to be different if you're 20 versus 70. Really your goal of kind of they're not absolute numbers, they're just good goals for, I think, golfers and all humans. Those numbers are kind of based around males, and you can decrease them a little bit for females, but for everybody to pursue, so it's not more the black and white of, am I there or am I not? It's great if you get there, but the reality is the closer you get there, the stronger you're getting. And it's more about that pursuit of strength, especially as we age, because, I have this saying, and I read it somewhere, and I really don't know who kind of originally quoted this, but Father Time is trying to rob us of our tissue. It's trying to rob us of our muscle, of our strength, of our abilities. And in order to not have that happen, we have to fight back against them. We have to actively fight back. And how we do that, the biggest factor is strength training and kind of pursuing some of those numbers, trying to get essentially as strong as we can. Now, for golf, at some point, if you're getting to those numbers, there is kind of a point of diminishing returns where now we're more in maintenance. But I would say, look, I've been doing this 17 years or so. I could probably count on one hand, maybe less than 10 golfers that have actually been able to hit all those numbers, especially getting into the 30s and 40s, and beyond age group. I get definitely some college golfers and some young professionals that can hit those numbers. But for the most part, most golfers aren't getting close to that. So there's plenty of room for improvement in my experience for all the golfers out there.
Now, you obviously talked about, mobility being important, and, I got 10 minutes of exercises I do pretty much every day based on, what's in the program. But I think one of the parts I'm failing so far is getting enough protein. What are your favorite ways to get more protein? Protein shakes, I eat almonds, stuff like that, but there's probably got to be a little further along somewhere down the road to get more, and why that's important.
Yeah. So look, protein and really the amino acids in it are the kind of the building blocks of muscle. So, as we kind of break down our muscle in the gym, for lack of better words, having that protein to fuel our body to kind of build that back up is hugely important. And especially, again, as we age, we're losing some of that muscle mass with age. So it's important to make sure we're getting enough protein to try to fight back against that, especially if we're doing strength training. So, your typical sources, what I like to say is, with every meal, you want one kind of main protein source. So, if you're eating, let's say 3 meals a day, breakfast, eggs are a really good go-to. Yogurt, especially Greek yogurt, Ratio and Oikos have some, yogurts that are, I think the Oikos is 20 grams for a cup of protein. The Ratio is 25 grams. So those are good, on-the-go snacks, not really high-filling things. Any type of meats, especially lean meats, chickens, fish, lean beef, are all good sources of high-level protein. And I do think supplementing with shakes and bars is a good thing. I mean, I do that to hit my numbers. I try to get to around 180 to 200 grams a day at my body weight. So I, realistically, between work and kids and everything, I'm not going to be eating 5 cooked meals a day. So I need to get that protein in somehow. So, I usually have a shake or two or a shake and a bar a day. which is another good way. Most of them are going to have 20 to 30 grams, of protein per serving in those. And if you find a good quality shake, it's low calorie. It's not, find the ones that aren't loaded with carbs and sugars. Those are great ways to kind of supplement. You're trying to get as much as you can from whole foods first. But then, supplementing what you need to with shakes and bars to kind of get to that number. And what I like to tell people is if you're not close to that number, you're not trying to get there overnight. If you're trying to get to 150 and you're starting at 80, I usually say, all right, let's try for a couple weeks to get 100. All right. Once we hit that, all right, let's try one, so you're trying to build up. If you try to do it overnight, it's you're going to kind of burn out on it, and your chances of really hitting that. So it's not like you got to do it tomorrow, but it is a good idea to start building towards those numbers and get to that where your body can tolerate that. And then you kind of learn, eggs, meats, like I said, yogurts are all good sources. Cottage cheese is another good sources. Any low-fat cheeses are good sources. Nuts can be, they're not, peanut butter, nut butter, and nuts aren't the best source as far as efficiency of protein, but they're good little snacks. They have some healthy fats in them. You do have to be careful because they tend to be higher in calories if you eat a lot. And then around that, getting your fruits, getting your vegetables in, getting your good carbohydrates to service your energy levels, rice, beans, potatoes, those type of things. Are all good sources around that protein. But, typically in my experience, most golfers that start training with me, they're significantly lacking in the amount of protein they want to take in, especially those that are aging. And it's even more important in the aging golfers because we're trying to protect that loss of muscle mass.
Now, one of the things when I go to Kroger's, right, energy bars. A lot of energy bars claim they're high protein, but boy, they're huge in sugar too.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it drives me nuts. I'm always on the search. Are there any particular sources that you found are really good in terms of energy bars that you kind of recommend to the people you work with?
Yeah, I mean, like there's one, I think it's called One Bar. It's a good Pure Protein, I think is the other brand. There's another Bear Bells. I think that's what it's called. But a good thing to look for, a good ratio to look for is kind of a 10-to-1 ratio of calories to protein. So most of those good bars are around 180 to 200 calories and about 20 grams of protein. And typically, there's some bars out there that are just glorified candy bars, where it can get into 300 to 400 calories for 20 grams of protein. So if you kind of keep those numbers in mind, that's a good way to kind of see an efficient source of protein. That goes for any food group, anything you put in your body that you're trying to get protein. If you keep around those numbers, that's a good guide to kind of say, is this good for me? Is this, a good efficient source of protein that's not super high in calories and sugars and things like that.
I'm going to remember that the next time I go. I think I see Pure Protein bars. I don't think they're actually very expensive too, but
no, they're usually pretty reasonable. I usually get those. You can get them by the box, and they're pretty reasonably priced for what you get for them, for sure.
So, how about talking about some of your best good news stories from older golfers you worked with? I mean, I know you've got a great social media presence up, both in Twitter and Facebook. Anybody interested, but and you talk about some of these things, but share a few of those.
Yeah. So a recent story, I had a guy that, high level golfer, scratch golfer in his 60s, actually was training 3 or 4 days a week in the gym and still was losing distance. And so, he kind of was getting frustrated. He reached out to me. And so, the first thing I asked him, okay, well, you're training, obviously you're doing something. Let's look at what you're doing. The mistakes he was making are kind of two of the most common mistakes I see in golfers, especially those that are already working out, maybe not seeing the benefits from it, is his strength training wasn't heavy enough. It wasn't intense enough. So he was lifting weights, but he was doing very light weights, 10 reps, but these were weights that he could do probably 20, 30 reps if you really pushed it, and so we made the change really just saying, okay, we're going to keep your workouts or your sets between 6 to 10 reps, and you're going to use a weight that would cause you to fail 1 to 2 reps after the goal rep. So if we're doing a set of 6, you want to use a weight that the most you could get with it are 7 or 8. You want to push that. In order to get stronger, you got to train at that level of intensity. You got to train pretty close to failure. Now, for newer golfers that hadn't been training, we kind of build up to that over time, but he'd been training, so I felt comfortable about pushing him there a lot quicker. And then, the second thing is just the intent of movement. So what I mean by that, and I just filmed a little YouTube video on this, is let's say we're going to do a bench press. So we're lowering the bar to our chest. We want to do it in a controlled fashion. We don't have to go super slow, but we want to control it. As soon as that bar hits our chest or the bottom of the movement, we want to drive it up as fast as we possibly can. We want to put as much force and intent into that bar. Now, the heavier it is, the slower it's going to move in reality, but it's more about that intention and that intent to try to move it as fast as we can, even if we don't feel like we're moving it very fast. Those were the 2 changes we made. And then the last piece I forgot about is he wasn't doing any speed training. So we started him on some speed training, and he got his max driver speed up. I think it was 101, 102, and he was hitting 118, 119. Now that was all out. That's not his playing swing, but
Yeah.
those weren't huge changes. We didn't have to kind of blow everything apart. So for most golfers, it's just, if you're not doing anything, it's starting to do something in those areas. Strength training, power training, speed training, and then working some mobility. But even for golfers that are training that aren't seeing the results, most of the time, those are the reasons why. You need to be training with heavier weights that push you closer to failure. You need to be pushing those weights with more intent. And then if you want that to carry over to your golf swing as much as possible, that's where that speed training comes in. And I love doing it even with just the driver and a ball. I always tell people, look, anytime you go to the range, get warmed up. Preferably you have some kind of a speed feedback. I like the PRGR radar, but there's other good things on the market. And take 10 balls, get warmed up, take 10 balls, take your driver, and your only goal is to try to swing that driver as fast as you can. And you're starting to track that swing and ball speed, and each swing you're trying to move those numbers up. So that in its simplest form is speed training. And even people that are doing stack system and super speed and other systems, I still like doing it with a ball and a club, because realistically, that's ultimately where we want it to show up, to some degree as well. So look, I've had some other guys. I had a guy that he was 75, spent 6 months in the hospital with a kidney disease, came out, started working with me, and we got him back, and within 6 months he was shooting his age again. So you see golfers like that. I had a guy that was in his 88s, the oldest golfer I've worked with. This guy's wife had passed away, and he started working with me, and his only goal was just to be able to, he played golf 5 days a week. That was his social hour. That's what he liked to do. That got him out of the house. So his whole goal of working out was just to be able to continue to do that and survive 18 holes 5 days a week. And so, like I said, everybody's goals are a little bit different, but my goals, what I love help golfers doing, obviously I love helping them hit it farther and hit it past their friends and increase distance. But, my goal is to keep them on the course. I love the game of golf. Most golfers, are in love with the game. They just want to be out there on the course. And so, I love helping golfers continue to have that ability as they get up in age.
I like that too. Well, talk a little bit, as we end, about some of your different programs that you offer to help golfers improve their performance. And typically, most of the people aren't going to be by you. Otherwise, they'd know you, right? But some of those programs, and any other final words that you want to sneak in here at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, you can go to my website, www.guidrygolfandsport.com, and kind of get access to all these programs and some information about them. But I've got a bunch of different virtual programs delivered through my app. I've got the 12-week program that you're on, which is more of a 12-week off season, the goal of kind of really going after speed and strength. I've got an in-season program, which is still kind of geared along the same lines, but it's more about also staying healthy throughout the season. I've got some body part specific, a low back program, an elbow program for anybody fighting those issues. I've got a daily mobility program for someone that just kind of wants to add some mobility to what they're doing. And then I offer my elite level coaching which is, more access to me as a coach, more one-on-one. You get a virtual or in-person assessment, depending on where you're located. And then, I build the program based on your needs, your goals. We talk about your schedule, what equipment you have access to, so I can really build it to fit whatever you need, whatever is going to make it easy for you to get it done. That's what I always talk about. Consistency ultimately is the biggest factor in all this. So I want to set it up so that you can consistently check the box that you did your workouts every week. And in that program, we talk once a week, and I'm getting the client's feedback, and we're making changes week to week as we go along. So it's more of a high level coaching and programming in itself. And all that is delivered through my app as well. And then obviously anybody local to me, I do in-person assessments and do some in-person one-on-one and small group training out of my facility here in Mandiville, Louisiana. So, I have ability to kind of help golfers of all ages, all levels. I've worked with young as 12, as old as 88, as I said, 20 handicaps to guys trying to make a living out of it. Again, my goal is to help as many golfers as I can stay in the game, enjoy the game, play better, hit it further, play without pain, and be able to enjoy this great game. It is the beauty of golf more than a lot of other sports that you can play it pretty much as long as you're upright. So, my goal is to help keep those people that love the game and want to get out there and play it as long as they can. I see a lot of golfers that it's like, I'm finally retired. I can play the golf I want. And like now my back hurts, my leg, my handicap's dropped 5 points. And so they get frustrated because now they have the time to do it, but their body's not cooperating. So, the goal is to obviously try to get on that before it starts. But even if it's happening, to help them get that ability back to now go out, play as much as they want, practice as much as they want, play better golf, hit it further, and just get out there and compete. They want to compete or just have fun if that's what they're out there to do.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've heard you say over and over too, maybe in Twitter, but, okay, if you miss a workout, no problem. But don't miss two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I mean, just try to develop some consistency. And I hope for me, it comes from just doing it over and over and being excited about moving forward, and I'll bet that's what happens with most everybody that does your programs. They kind of get started and they get into it and they just keep after it. And then it works.
Absolutely. And I took that quote from James Clear, his book, Atomic Habits, probably one of my favorite books out there as far as building good habits, breaking bad habits. I try to reread it every year. And that's kind of what he says, don't, it's okay to miss one workout. Don't miss two. So, life's going to happen. Things are going to happen. As I said before, consistency is really the biggest key. You can have the best program in the world, but if you don't do it consistently, it's not really going to benefit you. So I'd rather you do a basic program, but consistently, and you're going to get more out of it. And then you can kind of build from there. And that's my goal for every golfer. My goal is to, if you, especially those that aren't working out, is to build the habit first and foremost. And ultimately, whether you work with me for 12 weeks or 12 years, my goal is to still instill the things you need and be there for you so that you can build that habit, a lifelong habit. My book, Becoming a Lifelong Golfer, the goal is to enjoy the game of golf forever. And part of that is being able to build those health and fitness habits forever. And look, inevitably we fall off. Those things happen. They happen to me. But the better that habit is built, the more support you have around you, accountability, all those things, the further you get into the habit, the easier it is to not only make sure you don't miss them, but to recover when you do and not let that one workout turn into 2 or 3. And next thing you know, it's been 6 months since you've seen the gym. And that's what I want, is to keep golfers in the gym, to keep them going, to keep them training, and because of that, keep them out on the course.
Great stuff. Well, thank you for doing this with me today. It's been really enjoyable. I'll put links in the show notes to where to contact you at your website, and also how to purchase your book, I guess, on Amazon. And thanks for your help and for sharing so much today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Tony, I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. I could, I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about it all day long. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by David Orr and the Flatstick Academy, putting instruction without all of the bull. www.flatstickacademy.com.
Thanks to David for sponsoring my podcasts and website in 2025. In the link I've provided, you'll see that David has created more than 385 flatstick videos, more than 7,000 hours of content, and 90 premium articles. Some of my all-time favorite Flatstick Academy videos are the pulled and push putt videos in the Flatstick Stroke Mechanics section, and more recently, David's My Thoughts on the Claw video in the Flatstick The Classroom section. Rewatching the Claw video recently has helped me clean up some of my setup issues since I use the claw grip to putt. Subscriber cost $9.99 a month. Incredible value for the money, especially if you want to stop being swayed by much of the awful putting content you'll see from Dr. YouTube. I've benefited from David's Academy and yearly conferences for many years. More in future podcasts, but again, thanks, David. See www.flatstickacademy.com for more details. John Paul, thanks again for this great interview and discussion. I personally am looking forward to keeping on with a 12-week off-season program that you've provided for me. I put a link in the show notes to John Paul's Guidry Golf website where you can learn more about his programs, and also to where you can purchase his book on Amazon.com, Becoming a Lifetime Golfer, Your Guide to Hitting Bombs and Playing Without Pain Forever. Many thanks to you, John Paul. My shout out today is to one of my all-time favorite suppliers of custom golf equipment, Alpha Golf. I purchased shafts, grips, and golf heads from them for many years, and they've also been a loyal AGCP sponsor. Most recently, though, I decided to build a 31-degree Alpha RX Low Pro 11 wood to put in my golf bag to replace my 7-iron. And what a lovely addition to my bag this club has been. Beautiful shot height, perfect distance for my present game. If you want to learn more about Alpha Golf products, check out the link in the show notes. If you click the link in the show notes for this episode, you'll see all of my favorite previously published podcast content. I hope you'll subscribe to this YouTube podcast channel and also like the episodes you listen to through YouTube. Thanks. Well, that's it for today. In April 2022, I did a wonderful interview with Peter Sanders about strokes gained. Well, Peter's been very busy with Arcos Golf and also with the online Swing U app, and I know you'll enjoy my new discussion with him in about 3 weeks. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. www.gameimprovementgolf.com